You're listening to Lighthouse Conversations, brought to you by Lighthouse Haven, a spiritual home for your awakening soul. Lighthouse Conversations is a show where awakening souls gather to be inspired, connected, and enlightened. Spiritual spark plug and host Chelly Canales, that's me, will guide you through the twists and turns of your journey to a safe haven where you are finally free to live your best light. Each episode contains a conversation with a guest who has gone through a spiritual awakening, detailing their unique and life-changing experiences in an intimate and candid way. Although everyone's experience is as unique as they are, we all share one common thread. We're all seeking something. So, come join us on this journey and be prepared to leave with resources that will supercharge you into inspired action. Here's today's episode. Hello, awakening souls. How are you doing? The world is different than it was a couple of weeks ago, isn't it? Well, I just wanted to say that I'm here. I'm here supporting you. I'm here holding energy, holding space for you, because these are really trying times, but I'm looking at the opportunity in things as well. The quiet moments that we can have with ourselves to learn to trust ourselves again, to read the books, to connect with people in ways that are not as typically done, you know. You can have a Skype party, happy hour over Zoom. You know, there's a million ways that we can stay in contact. And I just want to send my love to you, and I don't want you to feel alone. So know that this community is here. There's also a guided meditation I've created. It's on Insight Timer, and it's also an episode on this podcast called Safe Haven Journey to Soothe Anxiety. I know there's a lot of anxiety running around right now, and if we can take a mindfulness break every single day, even if it's just for a few minutes, it's going to help with that spinning, with that, you know, the anxiety growing to a level where it just gets to be too much. That's not sustainable. We have to take breaks to check in with ourselves, to breathe. Please don't forget to breathe. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I have an absolute light here. Her name is Kyra Schaefer. She is the publisher over at As You Wish, and she's responsible for me being a published author for the first time. She has an incredible mission here. Through the use of her own voice and her own platform, she has opened the door for so many other people to use their voices too. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm a firm believer that when one person shares their truth, a million people heal. You never know who's going to be touched by your words. So thank you, Kyra, for giving all of us an opportunity to be our true selves and to say it out loud. And as for all of you, say your truth. What is it going to take during this time for you to step into a greater version of yourself? Be brave. Social media is actually a really great platform to share our work, and I want to see yours. I want to hear yours. I want to feel yours. So thank you for being you. Welcome to the show, Kyra Schaefer. How are you?
I'm doing really good, Chelly. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. It is such a pleasure to have you on Lighthouse Conversations. I've been a big fan of yours for a while now, and you came into my life at a time when I was ready to start using my voice in a bigger way of stepping out of the shadows and not being afraid anymore. And the opportunity you presented was to be an author, a compilation book that you created called When I Rise, I Thrive. And that was my first experience being a published author, which is so phenomenal. And I wanted to thank you for that. There's that beautiful book. Yes, yes, yes. I want to talk about all of the work you're doing in the publishing world in a really unique and grounded way. And I want to hear how your awakening journey, this shift that happened in your life, brought you to the place where you have become not only a great advocate for your own voice and your experience, but for so many others.
So, it was a really unique experience. We were closing our hypnosis practice, and then I started working for a church. I was doing their marketing, and I was just feeling kind of lost. And it was also right around the time that we had Holistic Speakers Guild. And in this space, there was a woman named Vicki Mitchell, and she was a good friend. She was a part of our community. And when she passed March 2017, and it was very traumatic. She was killed in a car accident and head-on collision, and it was just mortifying, you know. So it knocked the wind out of my sails for sure. I actually closed Holistic Speakers Guild because I just didn't have that passion for it anymore. And, all of the people in there were grieving, and it was just very difficult. But in November 2017 at 7 a.m., I woke up and I felt her presence, and I really felt that she wanted me to write her book, and I didn't know how to do that. So I went out to my group that we were all grieving, and I said, "Who wants to write a book with me?" Because I can't afford to write a book, right, by myself. And
Right.
so I got lucky. There was a woman there named Shanna Trofe from Transcendent Publishing, and she was just amazing. And she just said, "Hey, I'll help you. I can't do it for you, but I can help you." And I was like, "Good, because I can't afford to pay you." So, so anyway, I got out there. I talked to some people. They were like, "Yeah, we'll pitch in. We'll do the book with you," and we did. We did it. It was Happy Thoughts Playbook, and this book was really amazing because it offers tools and guidance for people who are grieving, and so it was something that actually helped me, process my grief. So it wasn't really just about bringing something out to the world and doing something really great. It was like, I need this for myself. And if I need it, I know there's somebody out there that needs it too. And so we did it, and it was just unbelievable. And every time I felt discouraged, every time I felt afraid, I just could feel her presence. And, Facebook, her old messages would pop up, and, I would see a, hummingbird, or I would, and just something just reminded me to keep going and to trust and to know that I was on the right track, because book publishing is not for the faint of heart.
Mm-hmm.
I often joke and I say, I'm going to have somebody else publish my book because
Yes, that's a lot to carry as the creative side,
right.
and the practical. Mm-hmm.
It's true. So, we really just help authors get to just do that, be their creative side, do that, and we handle everything else. So, yeah, that's kind of how I got started.
As you wish. And I love that you named it after the Princess Bride.
Yes.
That's very meaningful to you. I find that storytelling is the thing that connects us the most as human beings, being able to share our grief, our joy, our love. And there's a common sense of storytelling through film and movies. And so I like that you have that touch point. Someone can immediately get a warm fuzzy, even just thinking about the name of your company, and it's already touching. And I think it creates a safe space to come in and say, okay, great. I feel like I want to tell my story too. That's what I see from my perspective anyway.
Yeah. Well, as you wish means I love you, right? From Princess Bride. He
Yeah.
said, and that's really where this all came from, was just pure love, and wanting to connect, and just wanting to give people a voice. Because, I'll tell the story. I remember when I was first starting out in Asheville, North Carolina, as a hypnotist, and I was at Asheville. I think it was Asheville, and I called the local, this was 20 years ago, so I'm like, I know everything. I called, and I said, hey, I'd love to teach a class there, or come and teach something, or do whatever. And the lady goes, "Do you have a name?" And I said, "Uh-huh." It's Kyra.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my name.
And she goes, "No. Do you have a name?" And I'm like, "Oh, this? Uh-huh. All right. I hear where you're going with this."
Right, right, yeah.
and so I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I guess I don't." But if I'd have had this opportunity, like if I'd have had When I Rise, or if I'd have had, a book collaboration thing that I could afford back then, because I couldn't afford anything back then.
Mm-hmm,
If I'd have had an outlet or way to say, hey, yeah, by the way, I am in this book, or I am building my name, or I am building my credibility, I would have jumped all over it, because it really made a difference. I mean, even doing magazine articles and stuff like that, those little things in the local newspapers was really, something great for adding to credibility. But a book says that I mean business. So
absolutely.
yeah.
You provide that for so many. And so when you were doing articles, magazines and whatnot, how are you getting yourself out there without a name, quote unquote?
Well, it was interesting. It was called Western North Carolina Woman magazine. And I just, I just called. Well, actually, they said submit articles. So I submitted an article called Moving Past the Breakers. And it was about my relationship with my mom. and kind of the dichotomy that all of our parents, help us experience on a, day-to-day basis. We see the monster, we see the, we can see the villain, we can also see the angel. And we I just kind of spoke to that in that article, and it was a touching article, and I really didn't feel like it came from me because it was just so dang good. But they loved it, and they said, would you be willing to do interviews for people? And I was like, yeah, so I did interviews, and I wrote interview articles for local business owners. So, it's really what it's all about is that if you're passionate about something, and yeah, that's something that kind of came about as a natural result of just trying, and I think that for everyone in all of our books, so we went from having about 20 authors to having hundreds of authors in a very short period of time with these compilation books, that every single article I have ever read has been amazing. It just absolutely blows my mind how beautiful and poignant and real and genuine, and they don't have to be the best writers in the world either. They can just be like, hey, I have this really cool story. My mother wrote a really fantastic story, and she sent it to me, and it was like just lines of text. There was no paragraphs. There was no indication. There was no. I don't think
Thanks
she
for making
spelled
it easy on me, Mom.
Yeah, right? No one is allowed to do that, right, going forward.
Right.
But she is my mom, so. But I took it, and I was like, and then made it really into something cool, and it was already really great. But she wouldn't call herself a writer, but the story really needed to be told. And I think that, which was a story about a friend of mine who was killed in a house fire when I was a child, and how to help children with grieving. And it's so if there's a story in someone that needs to be told, there shouldn't be anything that holds you back. And that's why we give these opportunities for these multiple author books.
So how do you come up with the theme for each book? Because everything has a really special focus, and it speaks to different parts of you. So do you just kind of dream it up one night and say, yes, that's it. That's what we need to talk about right now, or different?
So yeah, what's interesting with When I Rise, I Thrive, this one, I actually was listening to a marketing webinar or something, and they talked about doing a 6-word story, and doing that and adding that to a Facebook post, and just having like this really ugly background, and then having like this, really bright, bold wording. And that's the style of ad to do to help get more likes or something. It was really an interesting thing, and it does work. And so I thought of When I Rise, I Thrive. That was my kind of, well, that's a 5-word story, but 5-word story, 5 words, 5 to 6 words that is attention grabbing. And then I was like, well, why don't we do a writing contest and turn that into a book? And then we did. And it was just so cool. With the other ones, I have Healer, Holistic, Life Coach, and When Angels Speak. And those 4 are in a series. And I wanted it to be really about the holistic world, and how people can kind of have those kind of professional people in their pocket. So holistic is going to be all of your alternative healing practitioners. Healer is our fun, woo-woo, like totally great, Reiki and stones and aromatherapy and stuff. And so each one of these books has that theme, and it's in a series, and those are 22 author books. So that way those authors get a really good chunk of space to express their practice, so that they can use it as a marketing tool. And so that kind of came to me because I started with Healer, and then I just kept on moving through the genre of alternative healing.
So as you read so many stories, so many, brave things on the page, so much trauma exposed, so much hope shared, are there common themes that run through everything, despite, the differences in the details and the, locations? are there things that keep coming up and saying like, wow, this is truly something that needs to be witnessed or shared, or something that needs to be healed in society right now because it's just so present?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it's just perseverance of the human heart. Like there is no end to the amount of stories that I get, or insights or wisdom or what have you from people all over the world, who have a similar experience of things like abuse or conflict or hurt or mental illness or depression or physical, emotional abuse. Like there's a lot of that, but inside of each one of those experiences or situations, it's a um, it's 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 just an overcoming every time. Now, there are just straight up uplifting stories, but for the most part, these guys that are writing have been through some conflict, and they have found ways to overcome and rise up in every different type of situation. And what's cool about that is that somebody reading that is going to go, I can do that too. If they did it, I can do it. And it's not that all of these books are depressing. A lot of them are educational, but they do teach us how to get from point A to point B with the least amount of turmoil as possible.
Yes, and seeing someone else do it, like you said, is truly an inspiration, and it allows you the permission to know that you can do it yourself. I feel the same way about this podcast. Every time I talk to someone and let them tell their story, it's so it's going to help somebody. I know somebody needs to hear this. And so I'm so grateful that people are willing to bare their soul like that. I mean, how much of a gift do you feel like it is that people trust you so much with these very tender parts of themselves, and they get vulnerable, strip it all down, say, here you go, here's my heart.
Yeah.
Please take care of it, and put it out there in a way that will honor it.
Right.
What a gift.
Yeah, I mean, there's a quote out there somewhere. I don't know who said it. Writing is easy. You just open a vein and bleed. And
Mm.
that's so true. And so I definitely honor every article that we get. I've only ever had to send one back to an author and just say, hey, can we shift this a little bit?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And but I've never rejected anybody. And like I said, we've had hundreds and hundreds of articles and different types of things. And sometimes the worst part is for me, this is the absolute worst part, Chell, is when I have to go, you missed your deadline.
Oh
I've
God.
I've had
Mm-hmm.
you've gotten all the way, and I've given them touch points along the way, and something in their self-confidence, even though I've said over and over and over again, it's okay, you've got this, you can do this. They just choose to let that deadline pass. So the hardest thing that I have to do is send that email or whatever and say, hey guys, I hate this, but I can't keep it open any longer. And, we've gotten, usually if it's 100 authors in a book, there's usually 5, which isn't that bad, really. But sometimes I'll reach out to them and they'll be like, oh my gosh, how can you give me 5 minutes? And I'm like,
Yeah,
how are you going to write a 1,000-word article in 5 minutes? But it's
but they
because
do.
yeah, sometimes it's just it's a couple of hours. 5 minutes is an exaggeration. But yeah. And so, yes, it's not lost on me how sacred my position is. And
Yes.
for my husband, who does a lot of the editing, we also have other editors that we've trained specifically around not taking away the voice of the author.
Yes, that's so important.
It is so important, because I think that a lot of editors just go, well, yes, but that's wrong. And I go, yeah, yep, it's wrong. We're going to keep it in there. We've had authors who say, I remember one lady said, well, there's things that are incorrect in the books. And I'm like, yep. Because
Mm,
when we did final approvals, that person just felt really passionate about keeping that in, even though it's a preposition at the end of a sentence.
Sure,
or
sure,
whatever.
sure. I
Yeah.
get that though completely. When I wrote the ABCs of Awakening, my book that I just wrote, I wanted it to make sure I wanted to make sure it was my voice. And people who have read it have said very much, yes, it sounds just like you. And during the editing process, there were a few times where I said, I know this is your suggestion, but I specifically made it like that. I wanted it to have that cadence. I wanted it to have that tone. And the words might not be the way you like them to be, or it might not be exactly proper, but that's exactly how I would say it to you if we're sitting across each other face to face. So that really is an interesting battle, because I'm sure some people are not willing to let those things go.
And if it's wrong, let it be wrong, but just know. And that's why I love working with authors who aren't going the traditional publishing route, because they have so much freedom. They can be fringe, they can be edgy. What I see is this watered down, trendy stuff that happens in a lot of mainstream traditionally published books. And so I won't get into it, but
Fair enough.
I will say that being able to have that allowance of getting to speak your truth in the way that you feel right about it being conveyed, makes all the difference in the world. And that's why we love
Yes.
working with the authors we do.
That's
so
right.
much good information out there.
It's so great. It's like without you, how much of this stuff would still be buried, not out there? Yeah, I mean, it's truly a gift.
Like 12 books worth.
Yeah. And you're just
12
getting
best-selling
started.
books. Yes.
That's right. That's right. So another thing we had a chance to do together, so an organization you're a part of consistently, is Celebrate Your Life, or Mishka Productions. I really, truly enjoyed the Women's Conference last year. It was
We had a
exceptional.
blast.
We
girl.
had a blast
We had
dancing
so
up on
much fun.
stage.
We were dancing up on stage. We
That
had
was
so much
great.
fun. That was so great. Like doing the swim with you during,
Oh my
what were
God.
we dancing to?
It
Like
was
a
Shake It
Bruno
Off.
Mars. Shake It Off. That's right. Yeah, that was so fun. Like, standing on the sidelines, and we're getting ready to go up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm really nervous. And you're like, girl, let's just have fun.
This is what I do all the time. So let's just do it together.
That's
I was
right.
so honored that you asked me. That was so phenomenal.
I can't imagine doing it with other people than you. You were just so fun and lighthearted and easy, and it's just like, let's do this. So
Thank you. And I love that we were on that stage, and how many incredible authors and teachers and healers were on that very same stage. That was such an honor. And so what I want to ask you is, you have access, through all this. In fact, you danced with Elizabeth Gilbert,
Oh, yes.
which was incredible. We have Glennon Doyle, we have Cheryl Strayed, we have, gosh, I could just go on and on. Tara Trent, like just incredible nonstop forces of good in this world, like really shifting the culture. They are authors, and you have very close proximity to them. What have you learned in the process of getting to know, getting to learn from them firsthand?
Well, I'll be honest with you. It's a really it's an interesting thing. Like that is like the biggest question you could ask. The people that I learned from the most, to be perfectly honest with you, is those people. I'll answer this in a couple of ways. I'll answer from multiple different areas. So the first area is the speakers. So the speakers themselves, I watch because I have close proximity. How do they treat their staff? How do they treat the people around them? Do they walk their talk? I know they're stressed. I know they're tired. I know they've got a lot going on. So when I look at them, I'm like, okay, do I want to emulate? And so that when it comes their time and they're the ones on stage and they're the keynote or they're the author, that they can go, okay, I remember I did not like the way that person treated that staff member, or I loved the way that they treated the staff member. Sunny Dawn Johnston is amazing. And I remember when I was just like, whatever, I was just badge checking, at one of the events, and which is an incredibly important role. And
I did it. I get it. Yeah.
And I was badge checking, and she came up to me, and she didn't know me, and she didn't know the other people, but everybody that was working her room, she came up to them and hugged each one of them personally and just said, thank you so much for what you're doing here. And I was like, remember that.
Remember that. She has such a beautiful energy.
Mm-hmm. The other things that I've learned is from the production company itself, from Mishka. Liz Dawn has been a mentor of mine for a number of years. Janice Glyman has been a mentor. Diane has been a mentor. The boys that do the AV, they've, Elmas and Jay, they've made a major difference. Purity means with Daniel, and, and needing assistance like with Danielle. And so there's just so much that happens in a big production like that. And to see how they treat each other, how they treat the speakers, how they treat the volunteers and work study staff that are coming in, like it's just paying attention. That is the most important thing, is to pay attention and watch how everything comes together, and how amazing it is when everybody is just so kind and loving with each other, and working through some of those tired days, where you've already worked 16 hours, and I know you've done that, and having people on our side like that is just unbelievably amazing.
And it sets the tone for the people who are attending the event. I've been on both sides. I've been on the stage and I've been running the show. And if the backstage tension is too much, if the stress spills out, from the containers of those holding the space, that's going to affect the experience of everyone who's there. And the whole point is to hold a really beautiful space for them to be able to process and work through the things that need to come up and need to be healed. So I really commend CYL for putting on I can't even tell you the amount of joy and transformation that came from that, just being in that space. So you guys are awesome.
It's true. Well, thank you. Thank you for being a part of every level of it. I mean, it's really great to see and experience. And I know that I wouldn't be where I am without CYL. That there was so much love, so much connection, so much camaraderie. And I mean, the speakers are unbelievable, but they always feel like a bonus to me.
Yeah.
And, not to diminish what they do. They are why everybody's there. But I love watching the audience and how they react. It's just so cool.
Oh, it's such a beautiful place to be in. And just to keep returning to that and knowing that it's there, it only grows and it only spreads. It's like little seeds are getting planted. Every time somebody attends one of those conferences, that's how the world changes. That's how the culture shifts. People pick that up and they get new ideas. And they're like, I always believed that, but I didn't know someone was going to say that out loud. Wow, I feel empowered now. It's a beautiful thing. So between the events and the book writing and you just showing up in the world the way you are with your sphere of influence and the people you immediately touch that are around you, you're being such a light. You are an incredible light worker, person of joy, and thank you for taking who you are and turning into something that serves the world. It's incredible because it's what you love to do too.
Yeah, I mean, I never. It was funny with Vicky when she passed. Well, it wasn't funny, but it was hard. But it was interesting because our friends in our circle all felt her come to them too. Many of them felt it to write her book. And they were like, no. She went down the line until she found somebody. Oh, here we go. This is where I would like to. And so she's been hanging out with me. And I thought it was so hard because I thought that when I published the book and I got it out there, that I was not going to be allowed to grieve for her anymore, and that it was all done. But no, new ideas just came in, and she didn't leave me. I mean, I still feel her, and I feel her in every one of these projects, because these are all projects she would have loved to have been in.
Yeah.
And so she, even though she left this world with, I believe music still in her, I do know that because of all of you, there's a little piece that's getting expressed that she didn't get to express, and that to be a part of that is really a really beautiful thing for me.
What a way to honor her, and what an incredible opportunity for your healing as well.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. You mentioned the book, her knocking on everybody's door, like, write my book. It reminds me of Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. She's like, the muse comes in whatever form that it is. And it's like, hey, I'm going to knock on your door. Okay, not for you. Cool. Not right now. That's fine. I'm going to take it somewhere else. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, that's my book out in the world. Someone else wrote my book.
Darn it.
I know, but you were receptive, and there's so much to be said in life about saying yes. And you
Absolutely.
had to say yes to get to where you are, and you've had to say yes a million times. And I'm sure it was not easy every time, and I'm
No.
sure it was scary quite
Yeah.
often. But what keeps you saying yes? How do you decide when it's worth it to move forward despite all of your fears?
um, when you again, these are great questions. I think that when it's a project that's bigger than you, and you know that it has a potential to touch, okay, 10 lives. I mean, if it has a potential to touch 10 lives, I'm going to do it. If it has a potential to touch hundreds of thousands of lives, I'm going to do it. But it's I think the thing that keeps me going is I have a really amazing husband
Amazing.
who's
That
a
support is
very,
so important.
very supportive, very loving, very kind. And he is he stopped working his job so he could come work with me, because I was like, I can't do all of this by
Yeah.
myself. It's impossible. And he was like, that's okay. We've owned a business before. It was
Hmm.
successful. Why wouldn't this be? But to me, it's always been, is it spirit led? Is it going to make a difference? And everything else is going to come into place. Now, does that mean my electric bill, gets forfeited for, another week or whatever?
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that has definitely been the case in the past. But I think the more that I remember that the universe is holding that $1 billion for me and just waiting
Hmm.
for me to accept it, that it starts to come in, because I have a focus, I have a flow, I have a place for it to go, right? And so it sounds like a mantra. It
I
has a,
like it.
you're right, it has an avenue. So it was interesting. My friend said, my accountant told me to get more write-offs. This is so funny, it's so weird. But I haven't even told anybody this. And I was like, oh, get more write-offs. Okay, so that means I need to spend more money. And then I was like, okay, I can spend more money. And
Mhm.
then I was like, what charity can I give to? And so I started doing a charity with all of our books, with all of
Yes,
our
I love
collaborative
that.
books. Yeah, we connect them with a charity. And what's so funny is that I'm like giving all this money away, and I'm like, well, that's interesting, because money keeps coming in and I'm giving money out, and I'm like, but I'm just trying to do a tax deduction. Isn't that right? And then she explained to me later, she was like, no, no, you're not supposed to do it that way. And I was like, but this way is working.
Yeah.
It's a flow. It's a bring it in. It's an inhale and exhale.
That's the part that we forget when we're scared. It's like, I got to hoard all of this. I have to make sure all my needs are met. But when you're in the spirit of giving, allowing things to move through you, of course, the universe is going to be attracted to bringing you more. It's
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
things are
You're
moving over here.
That's right. You've got a place for it to go. And so so then that attracted people to our projects, because they knew it wasn't just going to be about how I put the story in here, it's going
Yeah.
to sit on a shelf. They are like, oh, I'm going to help a child
Hmm.
escape sex trafficking. I'm going
Yes.
to, I'm going to make a difference for pregnant women who are homeless and living on the street. I'm going to make a difference
Mm.
because we're going to help young children in LA, heal trauma through creativity and art. Like there's something that connects us to humanity in these books, not just the books themselves.
Absolutely. Well, if people are interested in working with you and having their story told as well, what is the process of making that happen?
Well, they can go out to our website at asyouwishpublishing.com, and there's two areas that they can look at. So the first one is our collaborative books. So if they just want to get their feet wet, they just want to, they want to kind of do a low cost, low barrier to entry deal, and just start the process and learn a ton about the publishing world.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, they can just go and click that link. It just says collaboration books on our homepage. And then the other one is our solo books. And if you already have a couple of chapters written, or you have your whole manuscript, you can also just publish your full book with us as well.
Hmm.
And that's
Amazing.
on the page as well.
Well, it is a joy and a delight to speak with you. If you have anything else you want to say to the people out there, please do so at this time. Or if not, we can just wrap it up, because I feel like I've gotten to see such a beautiful part of your heart and your soul that you shared with everybody. And I'm just so grateful for that.
Yeah. I think the final thing would be, do not let anybody tell you you can't. You can. There is a way. It can happen. And if you have something to say it, because I don't want you coming in my dreams and going, write my book, girl, because I got a lot of other ones to do. You need to do it while you're here with us.
That really resonates. We're only here a certain amount of time,
That's right.
and what you said really struck me earlier. She died with music still inside of her.
Yeah.
Don't die with music still inside of you. Why are we here except to be here and create and to put those things that come knocking on our doors out there into the world, because why else would they come to you unless they were meant to be expressed?
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that truly is that we are here to make that difference. And I've asked my guides, my angels and things, and I've just said, why are we doing that? Why am I doing this? The first answer was, it's not about you, Kyra. This is usually the answer that I get from my angels. But the second one was, it's for the development of your soul. So if you have fear around it, it's time to do it, because it's going to help your soul move forward too. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a beautiful place to end. Thank you,
Perfect. Thank
Kyra,
you.
for your
Thank
wonderful
you.
time. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you. This is such a beautiful thing that you do. Thank you, Kelly.
It's my honor. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Lighthouse Conversations. If this show resonates with you, it would mean so much to have you rate, review, and share. Don't forget to follow us at chellycanales.com and on social media.